So good afternoon and welcome to voting. This is actually Friday. What date is it? February 7th, 11:41. And we are going to vote today. We do not have any bill hearings or briefings. We're going to start with, and this is the Health and Government Operations Committee. We're going to start with House Bill 329, which, is there a second? All right. Any concerns or questions about it? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, the bill is withdrawn. Let's go to House Bill 3, Delegate Bagnall, State Board of Physical Therapy Examiners revisions. It was voted favorable out of subcommittee. The analyst is Lindsay and Collison today. Lindsay.
This bill alters the definition of physical therapist assistant by clarifying that the term applies to an individual who's licensed by the State Board of Physical Therapy Examiners who practices limited physical therapy and has passed a specified exam, adds a second licensed physical therapist assistant member to the board, requires the board to send a license renewal notice via electronic means and provides such notice by first-class mail only when requested by the licensee, and then related to that changes the contents of the renewal notice by including the date by which the renewal application must be received by the board for the renewal to be issued rather than issued and mailed, because they will not be mailing them by default. There are no amendments. The cross-file on this bill passed the Senate yesterday, 45-0.
And this is, thank you, Lindsay. This is usually Delegate Rosenberg. He's excused for the week. He'll be back next week. Delegate Collison has been covering for him. Delegate Collison.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Am I on? Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This bill was very simple. Folks were very pleased with it, and I move the bill.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and second. Any question or discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, the bill is unanimous. Let's move on to House Bill 33. It is a departmental bill. It is the Department of Service and Civic Innovation, Maryland Corps Program Service Year Option Pathway revisions. It was voted favorable out of committee. The analyst is Lindsay, and the chair is Delegate Chair Kerr. Lindsay.
This is a departmental bill that alters provisions regarding reimbursement of Maryland Corps participants. Namely, they allow for a higher county minimum wage stipend, allows reimbursements only by cash stipend rather than using the Maryland 529 account. The bill changes eligibility requirements for participants in the Maryland Corps program, expands the Department of Service and Civic Innovation's flexibility in using Maryland Corps funds for either program, repeals the obsolete Executive Fellows Program, and makes other clarifying and conforming changes to the department's statutory authority and responsibilities. The cross-file of this bill passed the Senate 45-0. Before we move over to Delegate Kerr, on your desks you should have a revised fiscal note for this bill that was issued like 10 minutes ago. There aren't revised fiscal notes a lot, but the operative language that you're looking for is if you look on page 4 of the fiscal note right before additional comments, they've updated it to note that there is no net effect on the general fund due to this bill. I mentioned that one of the changes the bill is making is allowing program funds to be used for the two different pathways. There's the Maryland Service Year Pathway and Associated Fund, and there's the Young Adult Service Year Pathway and Associated Fund. The Maryland Service Year Pathway Fund receives a mandated appropriation. The Young Adult Service Year Pathway Fund does not receive a mandated appropriation, so there's expenses have been paid from the general fund. And the Maryland Service Year Pathway Fund, any excess money reverts to the general fund. So the fiscal note was explaining that that reversion to the general fund will be lower insofar as they are paying Young Adult Service Year Pathway costs. But because those costs would have been paid from the general fund, rather than the money reverting to the general fund and then paying for the Young Adult Service Year Pathway, it's just going from the Maryland Service Year Pathway over to the Young Adult Pathway. Same amount of money, no change in the money, it's just the path of the money is different, which is why the fiscal note has been updated to say no net effect.
Thank you, and thank you for all that work that you did to sort it out for us. We really appreciate it. Chair Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My
if
pleasure.
I say anything at all, I run the risk of confusing everyone beyond what Lindsay just said. But I will tell you that the discussion in subcommittee did center around the fiscal note issue, and it was not unanimous in subcommittee. I don't know if the members of the subcommittee who are in opposition would like to discuss if the explanation provided by Lindsay satisfies their concerns.
So I'm so glad that the fiscal note was actually taken care of. Is there a motion from you?
We have,
No, we have to move the bill
I'm
first before
sorry.
discussion.
Yes, we do, don't we?
Yes.
The amendments.
No amendments.
No amendment.
Let's move the bill.
I move the bill.
May I have a second? It's been moved and second, no amendments. Let's open it up for discussion. Delegate Morgan.
I guess my question is for Lindsay. So yesterday, the first fiscal note that came out here said this was unable to figure this out, that it could be up in the millions. And then this revised fiscal note doesn't say that. What was the reason for the change in the fiscal note?
So the money that is moving differently could be millions of dollars. But it's not a different amount of money being spent. It is just the path of the money that is changing.
So how much
So-
money is going to be spent on this, looking at this fiscal note? Because
So again,
How
the
much
net
has been
effect
spent?
should be zero because
The net
it's
effect is
the
zero.
amount, it's however, and I can't speak to their budget. Their budget is millions of dollars. So the amount of the money that is moving from the Maryland service year pathway directly over to the young adult pathway expenses, rather than those expenses being paid from the general fund. Any excess money, so there's a mandated appropriation to the Maryland service year pathway, and that is, if you look at the bill, it's actually shown in the bill. It's on page 11, the mandated appropriation each year. And there's language, so that's not changing. That's current law, the mandated appropriation, which is $20 million for fiscal year 2027 and each fiscal year thereafter.
And this is this is the volunteer program that was started by the governor right when he came into office.
Yes,
It's $36 million.
yes. Is the young lady that we have, Riley, assigned to the committee? She's actually with us for this year, so it's allows the young people to, instead of, going to college right away, right? To postpone it, to work with an organization, to learn from that organization. They actually pay their salary, right? And they give them a salary, and they also pay for health insurance as well. And then when they're done, they give them a stipend of $6,000 and something, which they can use for college. It is actually, they have students from all 24 jurisdictions, and that is the program.
Okay, well, I'll probably be voting no because based on, I voted no against this original program and its exception, but I want to thank the committee and especially Lindsay for straightening us out and doing the due diligence of, flushing that out. So thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Delegate Morgan. They do help, and I do welcome them. And Lindsay does amazing work. All of them do, actually, all of them. Lindsay, Lisa, and Aaron, we're very lucky in this committee because they go the extra mile. Delegate Kerr, and then Delegate Chisholm, and then Delegate Shalega.
This is a legacy light.
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was lazy. Delegate Chisholm.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
My pleasure.
I guess that's where my confusion comes in. The intent of the service year, as I understood it, was for nonprofits and private sector to go through our program to hire some of these young adults that weren't ready for college but wanted some sort of real-world experience. But with this, it's a huge number that Delegate Morgan just picked up. So where is that just from the $6,000 we're giving them once they finish the program that this big number is coming from? Or does it cost that much to operate it? I do know some people that work for Top Player Charity, because I've done work with them, and they have some of these kids, and that's great because they're paying them. I just don't understand why we have this huge mandated number unless we're hiring them all.
As I recall, the department testified that there was, that the payments, the wages for these folks are jointly paid by the state and by the employer.
They are.
So there's some of that cost, and then, yes, the stipend at the end. I can't speak to what their overhead costs are to run the programs.
Okay. Makes a little more sense. Thank
Okay.
you.
And if I may, I'd just like to gently, no judgment, remind the committee that this passed the Senate 45-0. So it was actually bipartisan, 45-0. Delegate Shalega.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
My pleasure.
So, I actually sent Vicki Gruber an email about the fiscal note because, it's very useful for us when we have a chart that we're used to seeing in the fiscal note that's like, here's how much it's going to cost, with either going up or down, and there's no chart in the fiscal note. So I sent her an email and I just said, it would be really nice if you could standardize the fiscal notes and include that. So she responded, and she said, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the note, it explains that there may be future costs, but we have no way to predict what they are. From the last page of the note, quote, "A reliable estimate is not feasible at this time, but based on funding projections in the fiscal and policy note for Senate Bill 551." So is that the cross file? No,
That's
it's-
referencing the original bill from several years ago. They had projections in that fiscal note referring to the reversions to the general fund based on expected costs versus, as compared to the mandated appropriation, because the mandated appropriation was significantly higher than the expected cost of running the programs, which is why there's language reverting the balance to the general fund from both of these funds.
Yeah.
And it sounds like she's quoting the original fiscal note, not the revised
She is.
fiscal note, because
Yeah.
this came out literally, well, at this point, maybe about a half hour ago, but very recently.
Yeah, she said the net effect could be millions of dollars. So I think, we're
So that was
still.
the old fiscal note.
So the new fiscal note is,
Net zero.
how can it be net zero? We're still funding the program, and there's mandated
The
appropriations.
bill isn't changing anything with regard to the funding of the program. So the bill's effect is net zero, because all it's doing is changing the way that money moves, but it doesn't change the overall amount of the money.
So now it's moving to the general fund when,
So there's the two funds, one of which has a mandated appropriation and the other one doesn't. So because it didn't have any mandated appropriation, any expenses were being paid from the general fund. And so the amount in the fund that does have a mandated appropriation could go to cover those expenses. And so that amount that goes directly to the other fund does not revert to the general fund. But because if it had reverted to the general fund, it would have been paid into the other fund anyway, the net effect is zero. Because the bill doesn't increase costs for the program in any way. It doesn't increase the mandated appropriation in any way. So there's no additional cost from this bill. All it does is change the way that money can move around.
okay. Maybe you should write the fiscal note. Thank you.
She's very good at explaining it. Thank you for doing it. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns from the committee? This is the place to have it right now, okay? All right. Seeing none, it's been moved and second. We did have a discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Delegate Shalega, Delegate Chisholm, Delegate Morgan, Delegate Riley, Delegate Hutchinson.
Nick, you
All
wait.
right?
You forgot.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, thank you so much for the discussion. I really appreciate it. And I want you to know that it is always welcome, and we're not going to rush through anything until you, the committee, understands it, okay? Because that's important to me. Delegate Hill.
In light of the vote, can I just add, I know the discussion's over, but that last paragraph, the last two paragraphs in the revised fiscal note, I think actually makes, what I like about this is that it actually found funds that weren't being used, and it found a
Can you
way.
get closer to the microphone, please? Your seatmate wants you to get closer.
Every little breeze seems, no. So the revised fiscal note, the last two paragraphs,
Yes.
I I think show that actually what this bill does is something that we look to do, which is to find mandates that are not being well utilized and shifts them to where the need is. So and I think that makes it a really good program. We don't often do that, and we often have programs that continue to get money and can't use it, and that fixes that problem.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, anyone else? All right, so let's move on to House Bill 158. It is a Department of Aging bill, and it's titled Social Connections Program Establishment. It came out of subcommittee favorable with amendment. The analyst is the amazing Lisa and Rosenberg, who is being represented by Chair Collison.
House Bill 158 renames the Senior Call Check Services and Notification Program in the Maryland Department of Aging and broadens the program to provide regular direct communication to an eligible participant to promote wellness and purposeful social engagement. The Department of Aging must integrate services with the Telecommunications Access of Maryland program within the Department of Disabilities. There are amendments on the first page of your packet that alter the name of the program to be the Senior Call Check and Social Connections Program, strike language specifying the types of communication and notification required by the program, and retain current language regarding funding.
So this bill came out favorable with amendment. Delegate Vice Chair Collison.
Sorry, I touched it. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a program that is really well implemented and allows for seniors to connect and be connected with, to make sure that someone is looking out for them. The Senior Call Check was actually the brainchild of my senator, Senator Kramer, and he wanted to make sure in discussing this bill that we may continue to do that regular check-in, or provide the availability of that regular check-in with folks, as well as increasing the services that the Department of Aging is doing. So with that, I move the amendment that makes sure that Senior Call Check is still available.
It's been moved in second. Do we have any discussion on the amendments? Delegate Riley? Okay. All right. Seeing none, can all those in favor say aye of the amendments?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none on the bill, can someone move it?
Move the bill as amended?
It's been moved in second. Question or discussion on the bill as amended? Delegate Riley?
Thank you, Madam
You're
Chair.
welcome.
I have on here, so it says the fiscal note is 0. And the department said that they could actually use the current budget of the current 5-cent surcharge. But then I have down here that the PSC is planning on raising that 5-cent surcharge to 9 cents. Is that correct?
Right, and I believe that's part of the 988 funding that's going to be coming in. So
that 9 cents raising,
Right.
that's not part of
Right.
this bill.
No,
That's something they're
it's-
doing
There's something
outside
that's
of that.
happening, yes.
And-
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
Good
it.
question. Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions or discussion on this? All right, it's been moved in second. All those in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition to the bill as amended? Seeing none, the bill passes. Let's move on to House Bill 265, Delegate Bagnall, Dental Service Qualification for Maryland Dent Care Program and Study on Use of Dental Online Credentialing. It is favorable with amendment. It is Lindsay and Collison. Did I skip one? I skipped 256? Okay, sorry about that. Let's go back to 256. That is a department, and thank you, that is a departmental bill. It is titled Health Occupations Board's Membership Alteration and Sunset Extension. Favorable with amendment. It is Lisa and Collison. Lisa.
This bill extends the termination dates for the State Board of Examiners for audiologists, hearing aid dispensers, speech language pathologists, and music therapists, the State Board of Massage Therapy Examiners, and the State Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists, and the State Board of Pharmacy by 5 years. The bill also increases the membership of the State Board of Massage Therapy Examiners from 7 to 9 members. There is an amendment that would reduce the amount of time for the Board of Professional Counselors and Therapists from 5 years to only extending them for 2 years.
Vice Chair Collison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're welcome. This bill, to remind folks, these sunsets are around to give the boards an opportunity to be examined and audited for their activities, making sure they're meeting the needs of their members. It was the Board of Counselors who said that they needed some work, needed some time and some feedback from the DLS staff. So that's why it's being recommended that their sunset be shortened by to 2 years. So I would move the amendment.
The amendments have been moved. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved in second. Any discussion on the amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, move the bill as amended. Someone?
Move the bill as amended.
Second, it's been moved in second. Any discussion or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, the bill passes. It's unanimous. Let's go on to now House Bill 265, Delegate Bagnall. And it's the Dental Services Qualification for Maryland Dent Care Program and Study on Use of Dental Online Credentialing. It was favorable with amendment. Lindsay and Carlson. Lindsay.
This bill expands eligibility for the Maryland Dent Care Program to include dentists and dental hygienists employed on a part-time basis. The bill requires the Maryland Higher Education Commission's Office of Student Financial Assistance, in collaboration with the Maryland Department of Health, to establish prorated loan repayment assistance for any part-time dentists and dental hygienists participating in the program. And as originally introduced, the bill required the Maryland Insurance Administration to study whether dental insurance carriers are using an online credentialing system to process uniform credentialing forms and report its findings and recommendations by December 1st, 2025. There's an amendment on page 4 in your packet adopted in subcommittee, which removes the requirement for MIA to do the study and report.
Thank you, Lindsay. Vice Chair.
This bill was well discussed in subcommittee. There were a couple of amendments that would have changed the availability of some of the funds to part-time people. Those amendments were not moved. The amendment that was moved was what you see on page 4. So I would move Delegate Bagnall's amendment.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved in second. Any discussion on the amendments? Delegate Hill.
What is, by removing the study, why was that done, and what is the effect?
I'm going to ask Delegate Bagnall to speak to that.
It was removed at the request of MIA, which said that they're happy to do the study and they have capacity, but they just would like a little flexibility on time. So they asked that we not put it in statute.
Okay, so we'll get the information, we just don't have to require it to be done. And did they give an idea of when we'll get the information?
They did not, but I can drill down on that.
I'm just curious.
No pun intended.
Okay, thank you.
I thought it was.
Good question, Delegate Hill. Any other questions or concerns? So the amendments have been moved in second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, on the bill as amended?
Move the bill as amended.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion or questions on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, the bill passes unanimous. And who would like to be co-sponsor? Can you raise your hand? Actually, if you do not want to be a co-sponsor of the bill, raise your hand. Delegate Shalega, Delegate Riley. Okay, everyone else will be on it. Thank you very much. Let's move on to House Bill 321. It is Delegate Kipke, Pharmacy Benefits Manager, Definition of Purchaser and Alteration of Application of Law. It was voted favorable with amendment. It is Lisa and Vice Chair Collison. Lisa.
This bill makes certain provisions of the insurance article apply to all pharmacy benefits managers. Those provisions include provisions on information on the sale of prescription drugs, choice of pharmacy, reimbursement for a pharmaceutical product or pharmacist service, requirements for entering into contracts, rebate sharing contracts, requirements, audits, and the internal review process. There is an amendment on page 5 in the packet, and the amendment requires the Maryland Insurance Administration to establish a work group and to look at certain provisions of the insurance article having to do with specialty pharmacies and anti-steering, and to report back to the General Assembly by next year.
Thank you, Lisa. Vice Chair Collison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We passed the bill last year, and what this bill does is extend those regulations that for PBMs that are currently in the commercial market to the plans that are self-funded and under ERISA laws, that we believe that under current Supreme Court legislation and findings that would meet those requirements and of constitutionality and federal trade laws, et cetera, for us to make these, to extend this application. One of the things that came up in the conversation in the subcommittee was a recent FTC study which indicated that there was significant increases on specialty drugs, which are very, very, very poorly defined in law. And there's like, there's not an opening, there's a barn size opening for lots of abuse. And came to light in the subcommittee, and that's where the notion for the study came. Let's take the information from the FTC study, look at what's currently happening with respect to the pricing of specialty drugs, and come back to this body next year with a report. So with that, I move the amendment.
It's been moved in second. Any discussion on the bill, on the amendment, Delegate Hill?
Does the amendment make the Senate more or less likely to pass the bill this year?
I don't think this amendment should compromise it. I think we need to work the bill over in the Senate for sure, but this amendment will just give us more information, which I think they would be interested
So
in.
they're not, okay. And they might like it better.
They might.
Okay, thank you.
We can hope.
Well, especially since they didn't really accept the report that came out, right? They questioned it.
The
So it would be
PBMs,
great to have something that maybe perhaps it'll be more credible to them. Delegate Kipke, usually I don't do this, but would you like to say something on this bill?
Vote for it.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. All right, so on the amendments, it's been discussed. Any other questions? All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition on the amendments? Seeing none on the bill? It's been moved in second. Any discussion? All right, Delegate Kipke, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, let's try it again this year. God willing, I hope it goes through. Yes. Anybody want to co-sponsor? Oh, yeah, co-sponsor. Okay, who does not want to be on the bill? Raise your hand. All right, unanimous. Everyone will be on the bill. Let's do the last bill for today for voting. It is House Bill 345, Delegate Curd and Woods, and it is Interstate Social Work Licensure Compact. It came out favorable with amendment out of the subcommittee. It is Lisa and Collison.
This bill enters Maryland into the Interstate Social Work Licensure Compact. There is an amendment on page 7 of your packet, and it makes technical corrections for consistency with the compact.
Okay,
If you want, we did discuss this last week in the voting session, and it was directed to go back to subcommittee where we discussed the fiscal note in subcommittee.
okay. All right, well, Vice Chair Collison, tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question that we had, that the good Delegate Morgan raised last year is, or last week.
Last week. It feels like last year.
It just feels
Right?
like it, right? Last Friday was, when we actually passed this bill in '24, it had no fiscal note. This year, it has a fiscal note with a requirement of hiring a position, and that's what the note, it's, I think, around $73,000. What we had a conversation, we invited the executive director of the board to come and speak to the subcommittee this week, and she explained that she is new to the position, relatively new to the position, is in the process of developing her staff, and in that development, she was granted 6 positions, but only had time to fill 3 over the last year, and the other 3 positions she actually gave back, thinking that she could probably do the work that she had with the current staff. With this, but then in analyzing how much work the organization and management and oversight and infrastructure needed to engage in the compact, she would need an additional position to absorb the rest of the work. So with that, the committee was satisfied with her explanation, and we maintained the unanimous vote in support of the bill this week.
Let me go, thank you, and let me go to Delegate Morgan.
I wanted discussion on the bill, Madam Chair. Do you want, do we
So
move
that
the
was the
amendments up?
amendment, let me move the amendment.
I'll go ahead and move the amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
It's been moved in second. We had the discussion. Any discussion on the amendments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none on the bill? Is moved in second. Any discussion? Delegate Morgan.
Thank you, Madam
My
Chair.
pleasure.
What our vice chair said was basically correct, and that was my interpretation of it as well. The administrator of the social work licensure board basically had 6 pens, and they filled 3 of them. And then there was, I guess she was a little bit angry about having money withdrawn from her budget in the BRFA that's put out there. And now she's using a bill to justify another position that didn't really need a position based on this bill. That was my understanding of it. So I think we're in agreement with that. Unfortunately, I'm going to vote no on the bill just because I believe in this. And look, I think in the program's probably necessary. I co-sponsored this and voted for it last year, but in today's fiscal strain of our state, I think we need, the focus on smaller government and not really hiring more positions. So I'll be voting no on the bill. But I tell you, this is a great example of how a committee should work. This could have been easily jammed through last week, but I want to compliment the chair and especially the vice chair for, doing the due diligence during this fiscal strain and taking this bill back to committee and questioning it and stuff like that. That was excellent work by both of you guys. So thank you all so much.
No, thank you for, for bringing up the issues that concern you, right? I honestly do not care, any party stuff. I care about you understanding what you're voting for and us trying to work the bills here because they're introduced for a purpose, right, to fix something. So I'm going to always welcome it, and I'm going to give you the grace to find out why, okay? Whether we agree or not at the end, I'm going to give you the respect, and thank you for the work. You're welcome.
Excellent work, really.
Thank you. Delegate Riley.
Exactly how it
Thank
should
you
be.
so much, Delegate Morgan. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If Vice Chair Collison could clear this up. I thought that during the hearing when she was talking, the secretary that is, she said that she put this bill in prior to even knowing that the governor took it out of the budget. So she was not aware that her funds were being taken when she requested the bill. Is that what she said?
She did say that,
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or concern? All right, so we did move it. We're on the bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, so the bill passes. Oh, opposition. Okay, so I'm gonna do it again. In opposition will be, and I'm not picking on you, I need to do it for the record. Delegate Shalega, Delegate Chisholm, Delegate Morgan. Okay, thank you very much. I want to. Do we have an opportunity for a sponsor? Yeah, for a co-sponsor. And who does not want to be a co-sponsor, raise your hand. Delegate Shalega, Delegate Chisholm, Delegate Morgan, Delegate Riley, and Delegate Kipke. Okay, thank you. I just want to take a minute to say thank you to the subcommittees and the chairs for your hard work and the staff as well, and our LAs for your hard work. Michelle and Andrea, thank you so much for keeping us together. We really appreciate everything you're doing for us. Our days are gonna get longer. As you noticed yesterday, you do owe us dinner, Delegate, and Delegate Holland White. Both of you owe us 2 dinners, actually. I think Delegate Hutchinson was correct, because our days are gonna get longer, right? And I just want to remind you gently with a lot of love that, if you have 5 questions, you can ask 3 of them offline, right? Or in subcommittee, because otherwise we will end up here very late. And I know we have to sort of go through these bills, and I welcome it. But if you could do some of it after you asked a few offline, that would be great, so that we don't end up being here at 9 and 10 o'clock at night, because we are going to work really hard. The bills are coming, especially yesterday was a deadline to drop things in the hopper. So we're going to get a lot of bills. Delegate Chisholm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to give the committee something to think about, whether this was intriguing, fascinating, or creepy. But
Okay.
so yesterday at the hopper, I was standing in front of Chairman Penny
Should we
Melnick.
take this offline?
It's not a bad story. It's,
Oh,
it's
okay,
just-
okay.
And she has bills in her hand. I said, well, what do you have there? And she said, no, typical bills. I do have one here for a teenager that died. His name was Matt. We're thinking about calling him Matt's bill from a boating accident from carbon monoxide. And I was like, oh man, that's horrible. So we have a long day here yesterday. I'm going home. My wife texts me and says, will you stop at Baru's? I'm here with some girls. I'm like, okay. And so I go in there, and after about 2 minutes, there's 4 people sitting in the corner at a booth. And they waved me over, and they said, why are you dressed up? And I was like, well, and they said, well, you're a delegate. I said, yeah. And one of the couple said, we've never been down there, but we have a bill down there. I go, really? I said, what's it for? And they said, our son Matthew died from a boating accident.
Wow.
Remember, that's why I texted you last night. I was like, I just got chills. I was like, the odds of that, of random people calling me over to ask me about a bill that you mentioned to me 12 hours earlier, was just like, and I texted you, I said, I'll help you with the bill. And then this morning, I'm like, I don't even know what the bill does. But I thought it was interesting.
So it's interesting because life is funny, right? And it's interesting. And I don't know whether you want to believe in coincidence or higher power, right? A combination of both. But I actually introduced the bill to require, the boats to have a little sign in the back that says, warns you of carbon monoxide, right? And there's no fiscal note. We worked it out already. And one of our interns, Andy, right? He said, I was doing research on the bill, and I found this family who lost their son. And he said, this is a family from, Anne Arundel. And he says, I found her online. I said, can you send me her messenger information? I sent her a message via messenger. And I said, here's my number. I love to name this after your son. Can you call me? And that's how we connected. Isn't that something? Yeah, so I can use your help, okay? And I want it. So anyway, I hope you all have a blessed weekend. Please rest, because after this coming week, you're not going to get a weekend, okay? So please rest and hug your family members, okay? And if you need anything, I'm only a phone call away. And thank you for everything you do, okay? And we do have the youngest HGO member. He's asleep. But Jaden, we love Jaden here, okay? Yes.